All right. Hi, everyone. Today we have Erik Keller from Enthusiast Auto Group, and he is, an expert. And these guys are experts on BMW preservation and restoration. So we're going to talk to him a little bit. And he's going to show us through their secret warehouse full of really cool cars today. So hi, Erik. How are you?
Hey, good guys. How you guys doing today?
Good. And we
Doing
also
well,
have
doing well.
Horatio here as well.
Hi, Horatio.
Hey, Eric, how are you?
I'm good, man.
So, all
All
right.
right. So first, I just wanted to ask you a few questions and kind of like introduce yourself a little bit. So tell us a little bit about how you got started in in restoring and preserving BMWs, and then why BMW as well, like why the BMW brand.
Sure. Yeah. Quintessential story. Childhood with growing up with a couple cool cars, and Dad bought a BMW, and we were just kind of spoiled from there on after having had a lot of lesser cars, and jumped in an E38 M5 as my first M car back 20 years ago. And as they say, the rest is history. We just fell in love with the brand, my brother and I, and decided instead of following the family business in the farm equipment world, selling John Deeres and fixing corn heads and painting plows, we decided we'd apply some family skill sets of making your equipment top level to a different segment of a different industry. And 20 years later, doing the preservation work and doing a lot of the technical stuff that's now really more so our company is as opposed to sales. We certainly best known for our sales, and that's what we do quite well. But we do so because we've got the right product, given that the workshop has had a lot of time to develop and mature, and got a great team that basically find the best cars and bring them in and put them through soup to nuts. We call it a rejuvenation, and it's basically bringing that car back to near new for a second time in life. And it's a blessing to do what you love, and we're having a lot of fun doing it mainly with them. But we have a lot of customers sending us their regular 535 or Z8 or 320 or anything from the 80s to current is really our area of focus. And the technical side's certainly been where we've kind of landed now more than anything else. So it's been a lot of fun so far. So we're just looking forward to what the future holds and keeping the top level analog driving cars out there, tip top 100% ready to go.
Gotcha. Do you mind if I jump in? So,
Yeah.
yeah, what makes you different from any other restoration shops? Like, is there something specific that you would want to highlight?
I think it's probably going to be the experience. We've always bought all of our cars back from our clients, given they were the best cars we could source back then, and we made them, effectively near new. And then we are able to see what those owners, had to do or didn't have to do, and then compounding that with every car that we're buying back year in and year out, we're able to judge the quality of our own workmanship, and we're able to identify the shortcomings that are consistent to the model. And when we've had several hundred of each of the same 400 E30 M3s, and closing in on nearly 1,000 E36 and 1,000 E46 M3s, a couple 400 plus E39 M5s. We've got a really specialized skill set, and so when we review a car technically and we're going through the car on the inspection side of the process, whether it's a car we're selling or a car we're going over for a customer, we're going through it to the same degree, and just writing down anything that would make the car better, and not necessarily fixing symptomatic things that are broken today. Rather, we know what the life expectancy is of the rear vapor barrier. We know that if they haven't been replaced in the past, one good rain experience outside and the doors are going to be full of water, and it's going to wilt and decay the leather on the inside of the door panel. So let's just change those now before it becomes symptomatic and have consequences. And so we're going to write a longer list, I suppose, is the best way to answer your question of what our technical I guess advantages over a repair shop or BMW standard dealership. We're just going to go a lot further and go further down the road. The things that you're going to spend the money on at some point relatively soon, let's just do it now, as opposed to going 5 different times. Same kind of thing. If you've got 5 different issues that everybody's going to have going to the dentist, and he identifies those things, you're not going to make 5 different appointments. You're just going to do it all at one fell swoop. And so we just kind of take that option off the table relative to the cars that we're bringing to market and doing everything that we prescribe. when the customers bring their cars to us for rejuve, shipping them in enclosed from everywhere, we obviously present them with the list, and then they have full access to our toolbox, our tool chest, and they can then guide us of where they want to go, whether they want to do the full list or just the cosmetics or just the mechanical or a hybrid in between relative to their use case and how they're going to enjoy the car.
All right, Nico, what was the second question you wanted to ask? Oh, I think, Nico, you're muted. I think he's muted, and I think you hear us.
Sorry
Here
about that.
Welcome back.
Thanks. I just wanted to ask, what is the rarest BMW you've had in there? Because you guys have had some really cool stuff, really crazy color specs and everything. So what's the rarest thing you've seen that's come through your shop?
Oh man, that's a good one. The rarest one we've seen, if we're going to go by like just the numbers, I mean, the Alpina wagon that we just brought in from Germany's got to be way up there. Only 17 of these Tourings were built. We're going to show you that Touring here today. Right. I think just 4, maybe 5, depends on your reference, but 4 or 5 were a 6-speed manual, which this car is. I would say that the lightweight here on my left is got to be up there. That's a delivery mileage lightweight. We had an Alpina B7 Turbo coupe E24 that was one of 30. Actually, we have a Alpina B7 Turbo E28 right now. That's one of the /3s. They only made 30 of those. That's a manual transmission. And actually, I think that's one of 4 as well. It was the Tokyo Motor Show car back in 1987. That was kind of the going out of the E28 platform. And in the Japanese market at the time, they wanted all the luxury. They wanted all the options. They wanted the longest build sheet, the most expensive car. I think that was like 21 million yen in 1987, which was like 150 or 160 or $70,000 once you convert it for inflation and whatnot. It was basically the price of 2 new Ferrari Testarossas or this one Alpina B7 sedan that was faster than the Ferrari. So that's pretty rare.
Wild stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's we've somehow had a knack for attracting some really out there cars, and frankly, especially these days, most of the stuff that we buy are phone rings, or we get an email through the website, or a referral from somebody that knows us, or maybe watch something like this and say, hey, that's probably up their alley. Which if you've never seen one of those before, it's really out there, especially in the M brand. We get pretty excited about that since we've had quite a lot of experience with the standard run production stuff. The out there stuff is quite exciting. And that's kind of what we've built. Here on the left is some of the stuff in Evan and I's collection, the EAG collection, and that's some of the rarest stuff that we've seen to date. We're kind of our own best customer at the end of the day. And it's one of the main reasons we got into this. Actually, going back to your other question, I got a letter from the state that said, you can't have this many vehicle titles in one calendar year. You need to get a dealer's license. And I was, I think, a sophomore in college, and I was like, well, I've got Indiana driver's license and Ohio license. That's okay. So, okay. So we eventually figured out how to get a dealer's license, and 2 years later, there we were, now official. And just right before we kind of did a name change from Car Locators to what is now Enthusiast Auto Group.
Gotcha. Very cool.
So yeah, a lot of rare stuff. This room, you're going to see a lot of rare stuff today. We've got a lot of stuff here that's for sale. That's quite rare. And then in the bowling alley, as we call it, the next room over, that's also got quite a lot of stuff, really low mileage, a lot of number 1 condition stuff, which is really what gets us pretty excited.
So how many cars do you have now, roughly?
Just a little over 100, probably, maybe 110. It fluctuates. Not usually less than 90, and not usually more than 120.
Yeah.
Do your customers pared down a little bit?
Sorry, go ahead.
So we've kind of pared down a little bit and replaced volume with quality, as is seeming to be the trend with a lot of our collector clients. They're turning 5 or 10 cars into 2 or 3 bigger, more higher positioned, at least at the upper end of the M markets.
Do your customers fly down to see the cars, or they just pretty much write you the check and you ship the cars to them?
Yeah, I mean, historically, even way back when, we were doing the majority of our business out of state, sight unseen. We've always been doing things, buying for sure, and most of our selling has been done remote. It was, it's been more and more remote though, as we've scaled up, as the reputation has taken hold, and people understand that we're going to stand behind the car and have a proven track record. So at this point, rarely do clients come out. They never come out because they need to come out. Rather, it's more of a destination. We invite them out. We want them to come out. We want them to take the tour like we're going to do today. We want to go through the workshops, meet the team. We have a driving day. We basically call that the EAG experience. And it's a good way to spend a better portion of a day with your new car and celebrate your purchase, celebrate the relationship you're about to go down with this special car that you've worked really hard for a long time to be able to afford. We're going to be a little more expensive than most because you're selling and buying a higher quality product that's going to cost you a lot less along the way. So you might as well celebrate that and make it a destination, which is kind of the main reason, especially these days, why people will fly out. We'll pick them up at the airport, spend the day, go do some fun stuff, grab lunch maybe, and it's a really good way to strengthen the relationships as well with the team, because there's a lot of communication with the EAG pit crew. Once they say, yep, that's my car, and we're going through the quality control process, the customers are getting updates every couple of days of, hey, the car's out of the warehouse, hey, we're doing all the fluids and the filters, doing all the extra stuff to get the car exactly where you want it to be. And the sorry, my other phone's ringing, of course, the customer calling in. I'll have to call him back. The experience, though, is definitely a good way to make that relationship with that customer with that new car as we're finishing up all those quality checks, and then we have a different technician check the car out, then checked it in, and it takes a little bit of time. We're not the typical dealership where you can just drive in and say, yeah, I want that one and I want to drive it home tomorrow or even today. We're not in a position to do that because we just have too many quality control checks to do, and we want to make sure that everything is 100% turnkey ready to enjoy. And when you're dealing with older cars, there's a lot more steps and due diligence that needs to be done in order to deliver that experience that we're known for.
Right. Okay, cool.
Very cool. All right, so I guess we should get to the best part, right? I want to.
Yeah. Let's get right to it.
I think that's what people want to see, really.
Yeah. Okay. Let's.
So,
flip this
what do you want to start
around.
with?
Well, let me flip this around. There.
So I see a beautiful M3 behind you.
Well, I guess maybe we could go with the older ones first here. This is a. Oh, there we go. There we go. So this is a 1973 2002 TII that we bought thinking we were going to sell it, and I bought it from the original owner through the BMW Car Club website, actually. And he was a machinist in Mechanicsburg, PA, and he used it as his daily driver for 10 years, and then it kind of became a collection piece. And when it got here, it was just too nice and too new. And I mean, it's 100% unrestored, original in every way. And so we just, again, being our own best customer, we kind of just had to keep it. So we've had this, I want to say 7 years or so, and get it out and do some fun drives with it a couple times a year. And it's good to be able to have one of the older ones to kind of connect to all of the newer ones, especially the relationship that they had to bring the brand full circle and saving the brand. And what's kind of the E30 kind of did and set a lot of enthusiasts in motion to fall in love with these things, which certainly is why we're all here today, huh?
Exactly.
So I guess we might as well we can do the EAG stuff here first.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you wanted to talk about Rare, the one there on the end. That's a gray black 2013 M3 Comp 6-speed that Evan bought from the original owner. It's a 7,000 mile car that just is pretty much new and a final year. And we again thought we were going to sell it, but the color just like totally stopped us in our tracks. And
which color is it?
It's called gray. It's called gray black.
Gray
black. It's a flat.
So it's a
color.
matte. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, it's got a bit of a gloss to it, but it doesn't have a metallic, I suppose.
Yeah.
The other thing is that he put a bunch of Dynon stuff on it, which we've been a pretty big fan of the old school analog Dynon. gear for quite a long time, and he did the M Performance stuff, kind of like a lime rock treatment with the front and the rear splitters. And
Gotcha.
Nice when you don't have any degrees of separation from new and buying those two cars from the original owners.
Yeah.
It would have been cool to buy this one from the original owner. As the story goes, the first owner was Ralph Lauren, and he had it for a number of years. Then made its way to Bill Jacobs of Bill Jacobs BMW outside of Chicago.
Yeah.
And he had it for 5 years or so. And I've spoken with his sons, and I have some pictures of the car with the other cars in the collection, which is pretty cool. And then he sold it to Gordon Medenica. And Gordon's the guy that was the first executive director of the BMW Car Club, as well as the M1 registry founder. And so Mr. M1 himself, looking for every M1 out there, trying to find the best one. And this was his second and final M1. And he had it for about a decade. And he sold it to Bobby Ray Hall. Bobby put the stripes on it. And then he sold it to Archie Archioli down in Florida, who's a real big collector. And then we bought it from Archie about 2 years, actually 2 years ago this week. We took delivery of it, and it was raining like it is today, and I just couldn't wait. So I jumped in the car and just tore rear out and drove it for the day. And they got a bunch of dead bugs on the front of it. We've been driving it ever since. We took it down to O-Fest in South Carolina last fall. And plan on doing some more drives with it. Might drive it again to South Carolina for the opening of was it Genesis?
Genesis, yeah.
Yeah. That they
I
just
saw
dropped
Jack
that.
is doing that. Yeah, Jack.
Yeah. That's so it was cool when we were at O-Fest. Actually, Gordon Medenica, I talked to him many a time, and we owned another one of his former cars, and I'd never met him though in person, and so we had to spend a lot of time together. And then I actually tossed him the keys and said, "Let's go for a ride," and had him go drive the car for half hour. And he kind of told me the whole story. It was pretty cool to like have that full loop of ownership, and that's one of the best parts for us, because we get to keep those loops circular and connect the previous owners and with the new owners, and it's just a good way to enjoy the hobby.
Yep, exactly.
So then we've got each of the M3s with 2 doors that were naturally aspirated. We've got a black Sport Evo that was the first Sport Evolution that we bought that out of New Zealand, and it was a pretty cool exchange. Martin, I believe, was the guy's name. This was back in 2014. It was New Year's Eve of 14, and the car turned 25 the third week of February, I think, with just enough time to get on a truck and then into a container, then onto a ship, then to the rail yard. And it came in pretty much like the week of its 25th birthday. So it was really a special time, because that was right when you could be eligible to import under the 25-year rule.
All right.
And when it came off the truck, it was kind of funny. It came out of the container. I'm looking at the roof, and I saw that there's no sunroof. And pretty much, I mean, every North American Spec E30 M3 that was ever built, not so much that one, but these are not all North American specs, but all the North American specs had roofs, and that was just what I was used to, not having seen a Sport Evo in person. And I kind of had a little freak out, because I thought maybe somebody welded the roof shut. The car wasn't what I thought it was. Buying first car from down under, close to it at least, and but turns out that was on the build sheet of not having a sunroof, and that's when we learned that sunroof deletes were a thing in the homologation cars. And then I got really excited about the car. Yeah, exactly. So again, I jumped in it and warmed the oil up and tore butt out and drove the rest of the day.
Nice.
That was a good day. Yeah. I haven't done that with this one other than a mile. This is a 47-mile lightweight that we got really close to buying way back in the day, and unfortunately just didn't get the deal done back in like 07. And fast forward to 2011, and this younger guy comes in, a couple years younger than myself, and into the workshop, and says, "Can you guys change my oil? I just got a 335." I'm like, "Yeah, sure, of course. Let me introduce you to our service team and talk to Josh here who gets you set up." And Okay, you want to wait on it? Cool. And I start talking to him, and he's like, man, you guys really like M cars. I'm like, yeah. He's like, my dad bought two M3 lightweights. There was a sister car to this one that had just 99 miles on it, sequential VIN, which was my alert that you know, the cars that got away had resurfaced 4 years later. And I said, so, yeah, so there's two of them. You said, yeah. They come out of Pennsylvania. Yeah. I'm like, I'll change your oil for free if you give me your dad's phone number. And
awesome.
We've developed a relationship. And long story short, we bought both cars. And when the car got here, again, I jumped in it and drove it a half mile down to the main shop, put it up on the lift, spent the day with it, going under it and everything. And then we showed it to Oktoberfest in 2012 in Columbus. And I drove just a little bit back then too.
Nice.
But it's kind of in stasis. All the GT stuff are in the bags, still unopened. So the GT stuff was the X brace and the tower brace, the oil pan and the dual pickup oil pump and a high-rise spoiler, which is all in that box there.
Gotcha.
And so when all the lightweights were delivered to PTG, they had the standard E36 spoiler on it with a third brake light and no brake light there in the rear parcel shelf. PTG put the stripes on, or the flag, I should say, as well as the front splitters. And then the rest was up to the dealer and or the customer if they wanted to install the GT stuff. That was $1,000 extra than the $48,000 MSRP. And it did void the factory warranty back then, which a lot of people kind of were upset about. But
that was the only way to sell it, right? If you get the kit, I think, right?
If you wanted the GT stuff, since that stuff was not DOT approved, they did have to do it that way in order to pass it. But the lightweights are quite special cars. You know, the aluminum doors, the sound deadening throughout the whole production process is not installed. It doesn't have AC. Also a Sunroof Delete. A lot of small little bits, you know, carbon fiber inlays, as well as the console and dash and plaques and lighter seats that are the sport seats with the hurricane cloth. And it's, you know, good 200 pounds less than a standard E36, and you know, weight is performance. And
see, 200 pounds today doesn't mean much, but back in the day, that's a lot.
That was a lot when exactly, you know, 240 horsepower. And a lot of the lightweights, you know, went and did exactly what they were supposed to do, like the door there from Dieter Quester and John Paul Jr.'s race car. You know, they raced them, and they got bunged up, and they got motors popped and swapped, and you know, there's of the 126 lightweights, there's, you know, not a ton of really great street stock cars left. You know, there's an argument for both cases that it was meant to race, and race cars are more fun, and I can certainly understand and subscribe to that. And same with the street cars. And and actually, we've got another lightweight we'll come back to over there. That's an original owner car that's actually not on the market yet. You're going to get a couple little special treats here today. I got a couple cars that are not yet on the market that we're going to go over, and I guess maybe announce them coming to the market here in this video podcast here. So it'll be kind of fun to see how that works out and find some good homes for them. I'll speed it up through the EAG stuff here a bit. This is a sparkling graphite 1 of 1 2006 competition, also a sunroof delete. We got a thing for no sunroofs, and all 4 of these cars don't have them. And they made just one sparkling graphite with a 6-speed as a comp. And we bought this, I think, from the original owner like in 2008 or 9, and sold it to a local guy who's a really good friend, and he had it, drove it every day, and we did all the service on it, kept tabs on it, and then when he was done with it, we bought it, and Evan just couldn't part with it, so Evan used it as his daily driver for a number of years, and then here we are now. A little bit more in the collection side of stuff. Did a couple mods, and it's a manual seat car with I think it's got xenons, and that's about it. Comp.
Beautiful.
And then Lime Rock that we bought from the first owner. It's a 6-speed, also no options, no navigation, so no hump. Pretty rare build sheet, cloth interior. Again, manual seats on this one too. And
there are only a few of those also.
We're, as you're going to see in the next room over, a little teaser with them poking out there. We've had a thing for Lime Rock since they were new, and we'll come back to that topic.
It's my favorite.
1M,
There you go.
That's my
This is,
favorite.
yeah, was it
I
700?
have one actually.
You'd have or had?
I do have one, yeah.
Oh,
I
cool.
still
Yeah,
have it,
it's a
but
great car, isn't it?
I got a Valencia orange because I'm flashy, so I wanted that one. So
Nothing wrong with that. It's a
I
Valencia
love
orange,
it.
a
Yeah,
great
it's
color.
I thought about selling it many times, but I keep going back, and I'm just never gonna sell it. I mean, I don't have a lot of miles on it either, but yeah, it's a great car.
Yeah, they're just a hoot to drive, aren't they? I mean, it really
Yeah.
is the modern E30 M3, and
Well, that's the
we
thing. I
drive.
mean, if you live in Ohio or maybe places where you can really go out and drive a little bit more, it's fun. If you live in
Hmm.
city of Chicago, it's kind of harsh on the stop and go traffic. So there are days when I enjoy it and days when I'm like, oh my God, this is so harsh. But I did drive it in Germany. I picked it up in Germany and I did a European delivery on it. So I had a chance to
Mm.
really drive it there for about 1,000 miles, probably more actually.
Oh, I bet that was a
So
great memory making experience.
yeah, exactly. The only way to do it, basically.
Not anymore.
By the end of your first day in Germany, you probably had more mileage on it than that, didn't you?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. No, I'm actually up to 30 to like 30K now, so I do have a little bit of mileage on.
Yeah, this one's a good reference car. You know, we like to have stuff that has 100 or 200 miles on it,
Yeah.
at least temporary, just for a little bit. If
So
not,
where did you pick it up from?
this car actually has a really cool, interesting story that I didn't learn till after I bought it, which is kind of rare. I
Okay.
usually do a really thick job of due diligence, but I bought it from a repeat collector that is a really known, trusted guy that I've done business with quite a few times. We actually sold him the delivery mileage Sport Evo that we had about
Okay.
4 years ago, the red Sport Evo that had 74 miles on it.
Gotcha.
So he's a no-mile collector, and he
Okay.
called us up and said, "Hey, do you want my 1M that's got 137 miles on it?" And I said, "Well, why are you selling it?" He's like, "Well, duh, Erik, I found one with lower mileage." Like,
That's
oh
funny.
gosh, it was Valencia
Wow.
orange, and so I bought it
Yeah.
and then drove it. Of course, the day it got here, put 15
Hmm.
miles on it, and, had a little fun, and 20, 30 years from now, when everybody that wants a 1M, can't find good ones and are going to be restoring them, just like the last couple of
Yeah.
years have been with the E30 M3s.
Hmm.
You're going to need to know exactly how this was and how that was, and I think the
Yeah.
survivorship of the 1M proportional to production will probably be higher because it was kind of an instant collector car, where the E30 M3s were instant race cars, instant track cars, instant
Yeah.
college cars 10 years later, instant cars that went out in the garage when the new E36 or E46 M3 came home, and take the old one outside and it's just an old thing, let's just take that out there.
Yeah.
And so being able to bring them back to near new again, it's great to have the experience and exposure to this level of
Nice.
quality, because when you drive this, you can't you can't synthesize what a new car drives like, and be able to relate to that unless you have that physical experience, and
Correct.
then be able to identify when you're driving a used car that needs some things, what
Yeah.
those exact things are to really tune that car to the highest frequency. And that's
Gotcha.
something that we definitely have been doing a long time, and this is a good example of it too, because this
So
is
hold
the
on one
eighth.
second. So
Yeah,
let me just rub that in. I think I know somebody in Chicago that's got a white 1M that has lower miles than this one.
it was
Like,
probably the same car.
uh, did you pick it up from Chicago?
Yeah, I bought it from Chicago. Yeah.
Westmont?
Yep.
Really? I
Yep.
can't believe that Pat sold it.
Wait, yeah. So, I
So,
I don't know if this was from, if Womack had much. I don't know if he had to do with this, but he's a big, real private collector that I know has
I
done a lot
know.
of stuff with them. And I think he owns a McLaren dealership up there too.
Yeah.
Um,
Pat is a good
yeah, I
friend.
mean,
So
there can't be many white 1Ms with 100 or
no,
so
no, and
miles on
I've
them in
seen this
Chicago.
car actually. I've seen this car
Well,
actually quite a few times. If it's the same one.
I didn't get the whole story, which I don't know if these two guys knew this or not, but Will Turner bought this car
Oh yeah.
first,
Yep.
and it was used with H&R for I guess SEMA and a couple other
Show
events.
car. Yeah.
Yep. And so they put their wares on it, took it around to the different events, took their wares
Yeah.
off, and it still had close to 100 or so miles on it, and that's when the collector bought it and then kind of put it in stasis.
Gotcha. Okay. Small world.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, I mean I mean that's kind of what it's always been like for EAG. I mean we just there's
Yeah,
very few degrees of separation after a while where you just
yeah,
you know everybody at some point or
exactly.
know somebody that knows the other guy. So
Yeah,
um, this is one of my favorites. The clown
Clown
shoes. I
shoe.
mean,
Yeah.
love them or hate them. You know, they're an emotional and inspiring car. You're going to get some sort of reaction from somebody when you're looking at one of these things. And this one, of course, in Laguna Seca blue, really gives you a second look. And Sunroof Delete. This was kind of my holy grail coupes. This was the eighth one that I bought personally, and it was kind of the build sheet I would have ordered had I the money and the opportunity way back then. I didn't have either of those things when this car was new, and it's about 3,500 miles, and we actually paid a pretty fair share more than what we'd ever sold one of these for to buy it, and we'd owned a couple different ones that had lower mileage than this at the time. The one I had before it had 2,000 miles, and but you know, when you see something that's just you're never going to see another one again, if it's really what you want, you just it might have too much money back then, but as time does, it's not necessarily paying too much. Maybe I just bought it too early, and I think I paid MSRP for it, to give you an idea how long ago that was. And
that's great.
another
Like
real
that.
cool rare one.
Z1.
This is a Magic Violet Z1 with some Alpina wheels that we bought from a good friend, and just couldn't get rid of it. I think this is the longest standing member of the AG collection, actually. This
Yeah.
is the lightweight.
Really.
Yeah, real fun car to drive. We've got a blue one with just 4,000 kilometers. Then we got a really nice green one that we bought from a club member. Actually, he traded it towards the lightweight. So we got two other Z1s in stock.
Gotcha.
I'm going to skip the red M5 for a second because that's one of the big feature cars that I want to, or maybe we'll just do it now. It's here. Sure, why not? So we did a YouTube video on this late last year as a first look, and that's actually what I came down here today to do. This is kind of doubles our YouTube studio some days in my secondary office when I need to get away for a bit and check out and get the work done. And this M5 is one of the best we've ever seen. We're going to be bringing it to market, I guess, as of this conversation now. This is a 9,000 mile car that we bought from the first owner. We sold it back in 2013, supported him for the next 4 or 5 years, bought it back with 6,000 more miles, now at 9,000. And Mola Red, you just don't see them in E39 M5s, and you don't see Mola Red in really good shape. And you know, a lot of the commercials and press, you know, use the Mola Reds back then, as you guys probably remember, and have seen a lot of the commercials, and it does red really, really well, the shape. And
it's one of the best colors. Yeah, I mean.
Well, I mean, it's a total wolf in sheep's clothing, but this one's got its teeth out.
Yeah, exactly.
So we sold it like immediately, putting a video out last year. And the funny part is, he ended up buying a Sport Evo from us too, and didn't tell his wife about either of those cars, and said, "Hey, can you store them for me until spring?" And so I said, "Sure." And so earlier this year, he wanted to get the Sport Evo out first. He's going to drive that a bit, and so we did, and got it up there, and everything was all fine and copacetic. And he came down and visited, checked the M5 out. We went for a little drive and had a nice lunch, and then months later, about a week ago, sends me an email. He says, "Mama's not going to be happy if I tell her about that red M5. There's just no way I can tell her. Will you buy it back?" I said, "Sure. I'm not gonna get you in trouble." So we bought the car back, and we'll go through it.
So two-tone leather, nice, very nice.
Yeah, silver stone with the Titan trim.
Oh,
and
cool.
you know, it's kind of funny because the first guy bought it for his wife, and she obviously didn't like the color red or the car because they never drove it. They had like 3,000 miles on it back then.
Yeah.
So this car's had a fair amount to do with the significant others of those that have owned it. So really great car.
Nice.
Our YouTube video will have a good video. We're going to do some driving in that one that we'll put up there here in the next couple weeks or so.
Yeah, let us know.
Yeah, definitely. We'll check it out.
Gordon Medenica owned this E30 way back when as well, the M1 owner, and we bought it and added to the collection. It's 24,000 mile Concours, winning one Greenwich, I think. Just a stock. You know, this is our kind of reference car for an A spec.
I see.
And then speaking of E30 M3s, I sold one to a client in Texas and bought it back. And he said, "Are you into bikes?" And I'm like, "I just bought a motorcycle last Saturday." That was like 3 days after I bought my bike. He's like, "Well,
Yeah.
I got a business opportunity. I'm going to buy my partner out. I'm going to sell my other toys." I'm like, "What do you have?" And he's like, "Got a Ducati Paul Smart with 92 miles on it."
Wow.
So
That's
we bought our
beautiful,
first
too.
big boy bike just to look at. It's pretty.
Nice. That is great.
This is called 50 Shades of Gray. This is Evan's runaround fun driver E30 M3. Kind of matches his sparkling graphite as well as the gray black, which are both kind of his cars.
Yeah.
So he's got a thing for gray M3s, obviously, and we've had this one quite a long time too. We did a lot of mods to it, TC Klein double adjustables and Brembos and BBSLMs and big carbon fiber airbox and Marcus Sport Evo style wing and Evo steering wheel and Evo 2. And while it's dirty because it's a driver, this thing absolutely rips.
Oh, look at
Oh,
that.
that's
This
gorgeous.
is so much fun to drive. I mean, it's just the sounds this thing makes are just intoxicating. I mean, I get goosebumps just
Beautiful.
thinking
Right,
about it.
yeah.
Pristine. Nice.
Yeah, the carbon
Yeah, so
fiber
this is-
strut brace is great
Yeah,
looking.
that's a nice touch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really great guy. I think you guys might know him. Ben Thongsai up in Chicago rebuilt this to a 2.5. And he's a real great longtime S14 and E30 fan and certainly has done a lot for the hobby. Great guy all around. Did a great job building the motor because we've been running it hard and she's still holding together. Like all good S14s, you run hard, it leaks a little bit of oil here and there, but that's if it's not leaking oil, it's not running right.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is a Sport Evo that we imported from Munich. This is the 541st Sport Evo built. It's an all stock, all original car as we bought it, and just really in great shape. The Sport Evos, so you'll see they've got wider fenders. Everybody's like wider fenders. Everybody thinks that they're wider like this way, but they're actually narrower on the height right there. That's about 1.5 inches. And then on a Evo 2 or a US car, it's about 2.5 inches right there. So you can see the difference there in the thickness. That's going to allow the Sport Evo to obviously have a bigger wheel and tire package, which was something they wanted to homologate for racing, which is really what the Sport Evo and the Evo 2 as well. I mean, the Evo 2 is really what won the majority of the races with DTM. And that's what this is. This is a macaw blue Evo 2 that's also a slick top that we bought from a repeat client. That one's for sale as well on the website. And just a lot of small little differences, like with the adjustable aero in the front and rear on the Sport Evo. They've got actually a little bit wider grills to let a little bit more air in. They've got little hood seals on the sides to keep the air out, to get that extra 1,000th of a second that they might need to get in front of that Mercedes or the Audi towards the end. Thinner glass, different seat belts, different. The interior on this is really nice. A lot of little parts that you can't get anymore. We stockpiled a whole bunch of, and the new steering wheel and shift knobs, and we've got a lot of that stuff in stock.
The Alcantara wheel and knob look great.
Yeah, and then the e-brake handle too, which is like the really hard one to get, that wears out the fastest. And those dead pedals are so a lot of the North American as well as European enthusiasts, love the idea of the Sport Evos, and so they would take their U.S. car or their European car and they'd add all the stuff like the previous owners and we have done to this one, and it kind of depleted the stock a bit, so it makes it a bit hard to get all that stuff here today when you're trying to preserve one back to near new. But we're not really having too many supply chain issues historically speaking, and it helps when you got a higher level car where you don't need a dash or too much of the real hard to get stuff. But
and where do you source the parts if you need to?
Most of the stuff we get from BMW. We've got a couple European suppliers when we get in a pinch, but for the most part, we've historically been able to get everything from BMW or nice. The original equipment manufacturer. Cool. The Lac Silver on Black, that one won Legends of the Autobahn Preservation Class Concours 2018.
I think I saw it.
For sale.
Yeah, I was actually there. I saw that car.
Yeah, it's a really good stock. It's it's a little dirty. The wheels are a little dirty. I've been driving it a little bit, keeping them exercised. It's really the most difficult part about my job is I have to drive all these cars. But I know when we do the EAG experience, when we have clients fly in though to pick up their cars, if there's like that one car that they've never driven that they've always wanted to, if it's reasonable and it allows them time and weather and stuff, we'll throw them in the driver's seat of one just to have the experience, or pick them up in the airport or something like that. That's a fun way to just share the hobby with other cars that they might not have had seat time in.
Did you have to bribe Satch for that award?
No, I didn't own the car then. It was one of our
Oh, you
clients.
did? Oh, I see.
Nope. We it was the second client that we'd sold the car to, maybe 4 or 5 months prior to Legends.
Oh, I see. Gotcha.
He still had the same tank of gas that we delivered the car to him in the tank when he drove across the stage. But it helps that he lived in Santa Cruz, not too far from there. Didn't have to go very far.
Nice.
That was the second E30 M3 he bought from us, and then he traded it back to us for a 91 M3 to complete his M3 of every generation collection. He's got a 91 final year, a 99 black that he bought new that we just rejuvenated. That was in one of our other recent YouTube videos. He's got an 06 black that we just sold him a comp, and then he has a 13 E92 6-speed that we just sold him. So he's got 3 black ones and an orange one, all final year cars. Yeah, cool. Everybody's got little different things, and whether you got one car and it's your daily driver, or you got 4 or 2 or 5 or whatever, it's fun to be able to get all the little details and know all the little nuances, and that's definitely been a lot of fun for us, as well as learning a lot from our clients along the way too, because we don't know everything, but certainly the lightweights, we're getting pretty close though. We've had about 35 of these things. This one's really special. This is, I guess we'll call this another EAG first look. This one's not actively for sale. It is originally a one-owner car that we bought from, we bought this from a gentleman in Florida. Okay. And he just loved the car, was all about the lightweight, and was one of the early adopters to the lightweights. Took it to Sebring, I think, and had, let's see if I can pop the trunk open. He had David Donahue, Boris Said, Bill Oberlin, a couple other guys, I think 6 or 7 of the drivers, maybe even the BMW North American Prez at the time. Bear with me here.
That's a tight clearance there.
Ooh, that's really tight. I wouldn't take that chance. Ooh.
Don't risk it.
Yes. You just have to be careful and slow. So yeah, David Donahue, Tom Dumas, Bill Oberlin, nice. Pete Halsmer. There's Boris Said.
Cool.
I'm not exactly sure who that one is. Same with that one. One of those is one of the BMW guys.
Gotcha.
But pretty cool to see. We've got all the records and everything on the car back to new, and he drove the car and used it, enjoyed it. Look at that, perfect parking job. And yeah, like 20,000 miles on this car. We sold it maybe 4 years ago to a California client. Actually, we sold it to the same previous owner of the Evo 2 in Macaw Blue over there. And another 1,500 miles later, she's back. So we'll go through the program again like we've never seen the car before, because our program keeps evolving every couple of years. And if it's 5, 6 years since we've seen the car, we're going to write a pretty good list on it, just in the evolution of what we've learned since then. Gotcha. It's definitely been one of the biggest advantages of buying all your stuff back.
Yeah.
And then we'll go over to the bowling alley where we have a little gaggle of lime rocks. I call it, see a video on this, that'll be the next video I think we put on our YouTube channels. It's going to be all about a lime rock. And this is what we call Lime Rock Lane.
Quite a few.
Wow, yeah.
the video that we're going to do is going to be up here on the front one that I drove here today in the rain. It's not going to melt, so I've been in California. So this is the fifth one that we have for sale right now. We've sold a little over 50 of these things so far, and just I'm really looking forward to getting. We're going to have an M3 GTS at some point. I don't know when. The 2010 homologation. We'll get a couple of those in at some point. I just
can you
have to. No,
if you get the M3 GTS, yeah. So it's just a show car basically, right?
It's not on the show and display list yet, which we've done the research to try to go through and do that, which it can be done, except it's just going to cost like crazy to do it the first time. And you can bring it in as a race car, but then you can't register it with standard license plates like a normal car. You could only do it maybe, say, if you had a dealer's license, which, I mean, I kind of know somebody that has one of those. We might maybe get the first one in that way to enjoy and then see where it goes from there. But you know, the DOT's got a lot of other things on their priority list right now to focus on. I think that bringing these in is probably on the lower side, so it's going to be a little bit before we can do that. But there are some M3 CRTs, the sedan variant of the drivetrain in the frozen silver. There's 2 of those in the United States right now.
And they're still race cars?
No, that was just built, I suppose, as more of a exercise and a celebration of the end of the E90 platform.
No, I actually know the car, but I'm wondering if they can actually drive it here, though.
The GTS you could bring in as a race car, but you just wouldn't be able to drive it legally.
And the CRT?
The CRTs are legal. They have been put on the show and display list.
Really? I didn't know that.
One of our clients in Texas, he bought a Chiaretto E39 M5 from us. Really great guy, and him and another guy paved the way to bring those in. And I'm very happy he shared all of his learning experience with us about doing that. And so we're hopefully going to be bringing one of those in soon.
I was actually at the Nürburgring at a 24-hour race when they unveiled that CRT. I don't know, a long time ago, 7-8 years ago, maybe more.
Yeah, 2012 model year, I think, right?
Yeah, it's a cool car.
Yeah. Oh, way cool car. And it's got like the little, just the really baby little flap on the front bumper on the sedan.
Yeah.
With like just a little red edge on it. This one's got a GTS style front splitter on it too.
Oh, I see.
But I mean, this motor, man, this thing just sounds so good.
I
And
know.
just ripping air right out of that nostril. It's
I would say the best they've ever made. Yeah.
It's definitely
I mean, it's way up there. I mean, it's a bigger car, it's a heavier car. But it certainly is a fun car. I had fun making this video. It's
sure.
Make sure to turn the audio up when you watch that one. It's it's good. This is the M3 that came along with the bike that we sold a couple of years ago. It's a 34,000 mile all stock original Survivor. Really just a sweetheart. It'd be a #1 car. And here you go, Horatio.
Yeah, I love this one. Mine is a little bit modded, so I did add some mods to it.
This one is
good. I can see that. Yeah, I can see the side mirrors. I don't know if he has anything else. Maybe the keying grill looks black.
So M Performance steering wheel.
I have that too.
Yeah, it's nice. That's a nice touch.
Actually, got the one with the. No, I didn't get that one, but I did get the steering wheel with the racing clock on it.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah.
And the little display. Mine is manual. I did not get. I got manual seats. I did not take the navigation system, so it's pretty stock actually. Nice. The only thing that I changed that I wish I could go back, I did add an aftermarket exhaust.
Yeah.
And I kind of wish I kept it, original, but I have to find that exhaust.
Did you keep the original muffler?
They kept it for me somewhere, and now we can't find it because it's somewhere in a big warehouse in Chicago, and I will have to go through all of them, and I did not have the time. So it's there somewhere. I just not sure if I'm gonna be able to find it.
Well, maybe we'll come across one at some point and let you know.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
So this is a 27,000 mile Lime Rock. That's a DCT. That's for sale. That one's on the website. All these are actually on the site. This is a 5,000 mile. This is a 3,000 mile. Excuse me. This is a 3,000 mile 6-speed. That one of the lowest mileage. It's even lower than ours, but it is a navigation car, which 98% of them are not. A lot of them are.
Yeah.
And then this is a repeat 5,000 mile Lime Rock that we've had twice, and this is a DCT that we've had twice as well. That's probably the nicest DCT Lime Rock we've sourced to date. The underside, literally, the original owner was really awesome. He was super. He asked me more questions than I asked him, and that's always a good sign. That's the guy I want to follow, chain of ownership with.
Yeah.
And he was very adamant about telling me that, he never, ever got the underside of the car wet, not once.
Oh, really?
And it's just like
Wow.
you could shave
Yeah, I
off the
can
reflection
see,
in
yeah.
that muffler.
I know. So
we
why
did
do you
add
sell
some-
it all?
Well, we can't keep them all, and
Yeah.
our program is cool because they come
No,
home.
I mean, why did the owner sell it?
Oh, why did he sell it?
Yeah.
I think, no different than once you've had something in your life a long time, if you're not using it a whole lot, you get to a point where you almost feel like you're holding it ransom if you're not getting it the exercise that it needs. A lot of guys eventually come to that emotion, and they, are not selfish. They want to share the car with others, and they want to see somebody else have that, that feeling that they had those first couple of years, and that excitement. And the second guys always have just as much excitement, probably even more excitement than the first guy did. And it's kind of a pride point when somebody's really went out of their way to take just awesome care in preserving one of these cars like these to this level, and then know that the next guy is going to love it and love him for taking such good care of the car on their behalf in their absence before they even were a part of the picture. That's just a beautiful thing, and certainly part of the hobby. And I know a lot of people are like, why don't you ever drive? It's got so low mileage. And if looking at the car and doing stuff like this and showing it to others and going to Cars and Coffee and talking about the car brings you a whole lot of fun and joy. You don't have to be behind the steering wheel at 8,000 RPMs to say you're getting the most out of your ownership experience.
Sure.
And no different than like collecting die-cast models of all these cool cars. It doesn't serve a purpose. It's not going to be able to drive you to work, but we still do. If you guys haven't been following the Isolation Island Concours on Facebook, it's a page that basically kind of substituting the Concours events that we're all missing. It's based off of doing the die-cast models and tell the story of the model, tell the story maybe of the car if you have the car, and donate to charity. And it's a really great cause that is really bringing a lot of guys together remotely, since we all can't be there together the last couple months. So the fourth round close is actually just closed today, and there's a BMW class. Tom Plazinski is the other judge, and for some reason they wanted me to judge them too. So it's kind of fun to be able to be part of that and go through and meet and talk to people and stuff. So it's a good way to.
I saw Tom posting that. I think he was posting that the other day.
Yeah, we've been having fun with it. Tom's a great guy. He's become a really good friend over the years. Really, really great guy.
He is, for sure. Yeah, he's one of our favorites too.
Yeah.
Yep.
For sure.
Yep. And our mutual good friend Ken Sparks and I spoke
I love Ken.
last week, and Ken wanted me to tell you guys both hello.
Yeah, same to him. Actually, I wanted to reach out a few days ago because I wanted to use his voice for a voiceover video. But the turnaround was so short, and I didn't have the time to do that. But Ken is awesome. Yeah,
he's a really great guy and great ambassador of the brand. Literally, despite being the spokesperson for BMW for a decade, he actually does it because he loves it.
I definitely miss him for sure.
Yep. Well, he's having a whole lot of fun. So we'll come back to these two here in a second, actually.
Selfishly, I can't wait to get to this one because this is like one of my favorite cars of all time.
We'll head back here and do one of those for you too.
All right.
We got two of them in here. Actually, E39 M5s, we own 10 of them right now. I'm a bit addicted. We'll come back to that. I'm addicted to them. This is a 91 318 IS that we bought from the first owner 7 years ago, and we totally saved this car. I'm proud of this one. we bought this from the first owner and club member. He was getting up there in years, and you know, as happens, you know, the spatial awareness started going further and further away, and the garage kept getting smaller and smaller, and things started to get bumped and bruised, and the back end had a little back into something in the garage episode that required a little paint work, and the paint was starting to get tired and whatnot, but the interior is just like minty fresh. Had 27,000 miles on it then, and the interior is still all original. And so we bought the car, we did a full glass out repaint and restored all of the paint on it, and it just came out fantastic. And sold it to a guy in Cincinnati, guy that had another house in Amelia Island, and so he used it there and showed it there, and then we were able to buy the car back a couple years ago, and I guess it was a little over a year ago, and we were able to show the car to our friends over at BMW Classic and show them our workmanship, which is, you can always talk about, you know, your paint work and things. It's a better thing though, just to show somebody. And so it's really cool to be able to show them what we were doing the second year our paint shop was open, and they were quite complimentary of the car and the workmanship, which was, you know, it's nice feather in the cap when you know, those guys
are those the guys in Munich?
Yes,
those are the
BMW Classic is BMW's internal restoration arm, and they manage and curate and care for all of BMW's classics, all of them. So pretty much from about the Z4M, I think, to well, you guys did the tour with Classic.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we're really close to them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so
I went to their facility quite a few times, and they're awesome guys. I just didn't realize that you guys collaborated, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Tommy and, you know, Klaus, we were real close with Klaus while he was still there.
Nice.
And then you know, we've gotten to be good friends with Hakan and several of the other crew over the years, just going to all the different events, Amelia and Pebble, and we share a lot of the clients as well.
Oh, nice. That's cool.
So and some opportunities. We just recently been doing some business as well. So
nice, cool.
This is another 9,000 mile Sterling on Carmel M5 that we just sold, that we're storing for the new owner. He's building out a new garage. He's got his wife's approval on this one though, so it's okay. And we bought this one as well, 5,000 miles EM Coupe 2002 that we bought way back when it had 2,000 miles, and I've owned it now 3-4 times, and just top car. Really beautiful fun car.
Nice.
These things make great noises, but they probably only make great noises because of this and the engine, obviously from the M1, the whole storyline of that S38 and M88, the wolf in sheep's clothing, the original, the reason we're doing this today, because this car cast a spell on me. I remember I bought it out of Louisville, the first one. I didn't need to find that car, and drove it back from Louisville, Kentucky, and just had a awesome experience doing so, and learned a lot about the M brand and you know, what's a valve adjustment. I had no idea how to do that, and so I had to learn the hard way. And we been crazy about E28s ever since. This one's a 30,000 mile car that we got just bought back. We got a couple more things to do to it to bring it up to 2020 compliant, graduate the program again. But there's only about a dozen E28 M5s left in North America that have under 50,000 miles. You know, the E28 and the E24 and the E30, you know, they were all obviously out at the same time. And this was about 45,000 bucks. This was about 65,000 bucks. And then the E30 M3 was about 35,000 bucks. And you drove the M3 on the track and had a fun time wringing its neck. You drove the M6 to the country club because it was way more expensive and it was your more luxurious car. And then you drove the M5 to work to be able to pay for all those hobbies. And you know, so they got rusty, they got hit, they got used, they had car seats in the back, they had, you know, kids throw up in the back seat. I mean, all kinds of stuff. But you use the car. And they made 1,340 of these. They made 1,767 of these for North America, and 5,200 of the E30 M3s for North America. So they made the fewest of the M5s that had the highest attrition rate. So finding those in really, really great low mileage, original surviving condition is just ridiculously difficult. And I don't think we've ever been offered a good one that we haven't bought, and probably bought in that same, or the second conversation we had with that guy once we did our due diligence. And we just bought the second lowest mileage one in North America that was on one of our other videos, the collection of BMW All-Stars, that 9,000 mile car. We haven't finished the videos. We haven't finished the reju. We're getting close on that one, but that's the best one in stock form in the country. And then this, they only made 21 lac silver for North America, and the 2 of them were US cars. And I think one, if not both of the US cars, were press cars. This is a Canadian spec.
Oh, wow.
So this is an 87, but being a Canadian spec, it's going to still have the half line interior instead of the full line, which means it's going to have a vinyl dash instead of a leather dash. That was one of the Canadian features, and the leather dashes all kind of contort and spit those vents out and shrink.
Yeah.
It'll also have a vinyl, or excuse me, not a vinyl, a cloth headliner, as well as a vinyl center console, as opposed to leather that the 87 US cars would have. And so this is a little bit of the best of both worlds, because it's got the right interior, so to speak, the same as an 88. That probably won't carry quite the premium that the 80 that the 88 sold. This is an 87. Really cool car. The second
Before
time
you go,
we've had that one.
before you go
Yeah.
further down, somebody just left a comment asking if you have any 81 or 83 323i's.
We the E21. We
Yeah.
have the E21, the first 3 series.
Yeah.
That's really right where we kind of cut off, if you will. We've never brought one of those into inventory. We've worked on a couple of them. We've actually got one now in the workshop. But I'll say that, you know, and same with like the predecessor to the E24, the E9. We've always felt that it's not going to be the absolute best at that specific model or market, especially mainly from a technical standpoint. I probably don't have business, you know, setting up the valve train in your Cosworth or your, you know, Audi or Mercedes. It's just not what we're here to do. But if it's an M car, if it's a BMW from the mid 80s to current, that's really what we cut our teeth on. I had an 84 318i in the, you know, first year of the E30 in college, and from there forward is really where we have the most experience, both in volume of cars through the program, as well as time, you know, on the models. Beautiful cars, and you know, a lot of we've had a fair amount of people in the last couple of years as that generation of enthusiasts that wanted those back then. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that the most people that are interested in those are going to be you know, in their mid late 50s, early 60s, that could have wanted one of those back then and just didn't jump into one. And they want to have those memories back, which is the majority of the guys buying all of our cars that we've went over today is you know, they either had them back then and they miss it so much that they want to get into another one, and that know as an educated owner what the trials and tribulations were during their ownership, so they see the value in this investing into the car to get the right one, so they don't have to sit in the lobby of the repair shop as opposed to right there where you belong in the driver's seat, you know. And that's historically why they come to us, since they're going to get a turnkey product. But no E20 ones in the pipeline. If people have great ones and really low mileage ones, you know, I'm certainly open to explore and jump in. I'm sure we can do it and do it really well, but we're not going to be, you know, not going to know every nuance about it like maybe some other shops. You know, shout out to maybe the workshop and Mario Langston. You know, those 2 shops are going to be more in the E9 in 2002 and E21 markets more so than EAG.
Cool.
And then we send a lot of guys their way, because they know what they're doing, and they're quality guys are going to take good care of people.
That's really cool. Yeah.
So yeah, this is cool, huh?
This one is very
Dakar
cool.
yellow, right?
And yeah, individual 107 in Dakar. It's Euro spec, as is the diamond shorts there in front of it. And this one's cool because you won't see this in the US. This has the sport seat option, which is going to have the thigh extender, little more supportive bolsters. And then the Euro cars are going to have the 4-wheel steering and the bigger brakes and oil cooler and diff cooler. They came with either the throwing stars. You can see the bigger 4-piston brakes there.
Yeah.
This car actually came with the BBS style 5s that you'll see on the website. I did have a set of Euro staggered M parallels I wanted to put on. We were thinking about driving this to Amelia Island before things started getting a little different, and so I set it all up to drive it to Amelia, and was actually going to drive down with one of the guys from BMW Classic, Håkan, and the last minute he kind of had to change his plans, and so I changed mine. But put those wheels on for the trip. This is a 26,000 mile, about 43,000 kilometers that came from the original family that bought it new. And there's a really cool video of this coming off the container when we, the day we got it from Germany. And the original owner, he and a business partner owned a paper, I think a printing company or a paper company of some sort. And towards the end of their career, they bought themselves, a present to celebrate their hard work. And so this car was more than just a car. It was a memory and an heirloom and a memento to the family. And so he passed it down to his son, and his son took care of it for a couple of years, and then eventually I think the responsibility and value just trumped the desire to keep it, and wanted to keep it in a good home though. But so he reached out to us, and we brought the car in, and super, it's probably the nicest. Even we've seen lower mileage ones, I haven't seen better. The trim and switches, everything on the car is just minty fresh.
It looks brand new almost.
Yeah.
It's really, and it's been regularly serviced. It's been regularly driven. That's a big thing with E31s. They're very complex cars. And if you remember back then, think of late 80s, early 90s, and the development of this car. $900 million went into developing the 8 Series platform, and all the computers and the aids and traction control, all the first to markets, first 6-speed manual with a V12 ever in the history of sports cars. And when these things sit, those computers drain the capacitors. There's all kinds of little problems technically that you are asking for, and then trying to resurrect a car that's been stuck in the back there for 10 years because the batteries went dead, both of them. There's 2 batteries in these things. It can be quite problematic. So having one that's been regularly driven and enjoyed is really, really important. If you don't want to hemorrhage 10, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 after you buy the car, which we have customers paying us to do that stuff. Then when they just I got a great deal, just bought this. Well, the gap between great deal and what you should have paid usually is larger in terms of what you're going to spend in the workshop to get to what it should have been. That's been our experience. Another E39 M5. This is a 79,000 mile car. This is a cool story. You guys have heard that the guy loved the car so much, and he buffed on the car and detailed the car so much that he literally rubbed the paint off the car. Well, this is that car. And every other panel at least, there's a couple little faint spots there. You're seeing that little light spot there is a paint burn where he literally rubbed the paint off the car. And there's one on the hood right there. And so a lot of the single stage Schwartz black M5s, they've been repainted for, a number of different reasons. This one probably being one of the rarer reasons. Not many people can physically rub the paint off a car. It takes a lot of time in the garage for many years. But this guy did. And, paint meter verifying it, this thing's all original paint, which is really hard to find in an E29 M5 these days. And we decided to preserve that originality despite a couple little flaws like these. You can't synthesize that. You can't make a story like that. And, hearing it from the previous owner's, mouth, and having the documents, and I bought the microfiche reader that he had and he used to keep the car in service, at a high degree. I mean, when's the last time you saw a microfiche reader for, parts catalog? And it's got 79,000 miles on it. And it's just a heck of a nice car. Oh, that's original.
It's great. I've always wanted one. Just one of my favorites.
You have good taste. Listen to the door shut on this.
Oh, yeah, I love it.
It's a vault. Great cars. This is a fun one. This is a Japanese Spec 325 Touring. You'll see a video of this one here soon too. We bought this a couple years ago, and we just couldn't sell it. I Sunroof Delete, and it's got air conditioning, which, you know, these were not super heavily optioned cars oftentimes, and it's rare to find one with AC. It's a Japanese spec with a bunch of Alpina gear on it.
An automatic too. That's interesting.
Yeah, a lot of traffic in that small island of Japan, and if you're sitting in traffic for 3 or 4 hours a day back then, which was a thing, that was a luxury, and you paid more money obviously for it. And Alpina certainly was a big fan of the automatics, because that was new technology. As you know, Burkhardt was developing the Alpina brand, and most of the Alpinas, most of the wagons, most of all the Alpinas in that time frame were automatics, like the Alpina Z8s. Here's the interesting thing. So obviously right-hand drive market in Japan, all the E30 wagons were built as a left-hand drive, as were the Sport Evos. And so if you're driving on the unnatural side of the car in a natural market, such as left-hand drive and right-hand drive Japan, that far corner that you're not used to is kind of out on an island. And so they put this little parking pole on there. And we had a right-hand drive Sport Evo last year, and I drove that a fair amount. And I can tell you that when you're sitting on this side of the car, that corner over there feels like it's way out on an island. And taking, you know, hard right-hand corners is a really different experience. So I can see, especially when you're maneuvering in a parking garage or a building like this, that becomes quite important to have if you don't want to, you know, rash your bumpers up and bang your car around.
Very interesting.
Yeah, first parking pole EAG's ever had.
Those things, they help add like character and value to the car. It's interesting.
Yeah, and like we kept a lot of the little stuff. You know, the original selling dealer, BMW Japan Corp, a wholly owned subsidiary of BMW AG, Munich, West Germany. Yeah, you won't find that sticker again, huh?
Probably not.
No.
And one other cool thing that people have asked questions on in the past, not a lot of people have seen the automatic transmissions in the E30s. They actually have a selector gear. And so you've got sport, economy, and then a manual ability to switch gears. So,
well, all the way back then, that's interesting.
Yeah, yep. And this is a 91 model. I think 90. They've made a couple 92s and 93s, but not many. You know, one thing I've never been able to answer, one question I've had on this car, maybe somebody watching or somebody that watches the video later can answer this question. The build sheet on this wagon and a couple other wagons I've ran the build sheets on note a 141 kilowatt output, which translates to, I think, just a little over 190 horsepower. And it's an M20, and all the US M20s and most of the European M20s that I'm aware of came with a 125 kilowatt output, which is 168 horsepower. I've seen it on several other VINs though, of that one, I think it's 141 kilowatt is what the build sheet says. I have no idea what they did technically to squeeze out that extra horsepower. And I'm guessing the rationale behind it was just that you've got a wagon and you're carrying more weight. So let's bump it up a little bit. You're losing a little bit maybe with an automatic transmission as well, you know, through drivetrain loss. I've shot a little bit of the video for this thing and went and took it through some corners and really hucked this thing around, which I hadn't done in a long time. And it's a surprisingly capable little car, despite you know, being an automatic and despite not being an M3, it boogies. So do you guys have any idea why that would have a bigger output motor or anything? DME
sure.
or CAM? I'm not sure.
No idea.
Try to find out.
But yeah, we can look into it for sure. Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I've asked some of the BMW guys, including some of the classic guys, and I wasn't able to get the answer from them. So
Really?
I don't know.
Well, someone has to know.
Somebody's got to know. So hopefully I will solve that question. That's one of the older questions I've had. I haven't been, 2 years I've not been able to find an answer to that question. There's not a lot of question about how cool this is.
Yeah.
I think this is the coolest E34 wagon I think we'll probably ever have. I mean, I don't know where you go from here if you're an E34 guy.
Yeah, it's probably the coolest E34 there is.
I think so. I love my M5 wagons. We just posted a video that dined in stage 3, the M Sport E39 540, and I found some pictures and videos even of our Santorini blue M5 wagon that we bought back in 2005. And I think when I do this video, I'm gonna have to show the video of us driving our Santorini blue wagon around an autocross course at 11/10. I'd love to do it in this thing, because this thing's got a bit more
Amazing.
it's got a bit more rear end than the M5 Touring in terms of power. It's a 4.6 liter V8 that's real similar to the engine that later is, I think, one of the more final iterations would be what you'd find in the Alpina Z8. This is based off an M60 block, and most of them are going to be the automatic transmission. This one is a true 6-speed by birth manual, and it's been in Germany its whole life. And I got to give mad props to Thomas, the previous owner of this car in Europe. He did a fantastic job as an owner. The condition is just absolutely off the charts. It's petrol mica metallic, and the paint is in just killer shape. It's a full leather interior car, and driving it is just what's the best part of it in this case.
Wow, look at that one.
There it is. Yeah.
Wow. Just unbelievable.
And guys, this is condition-wise. I'm showing you this is how we bought it. This is how
Oh,
it showed up.
really? That there's
Yeah.
You didn't clean that up at all? Because that's like
no,
crazy.
no. I mean, if
clean.
anything, it's dirtier than it was when it got here. I can't take credit for this one.
Wow.
I can take credit for adding
That's amazing.
nearly 1,000 kilometers to it so far. That I can.
you
You
can't
have to
help
use
it. Huh?
Q-tips
claim.
on that one to clean it.
So yeah, this one's going to be a fun video.
Wow, that's really, really amazing.
And I mean, even down to the mass airflow. I mean, this thing's huge. This is a good ½ inch, if not even an inch wider than what you'd find in a standard 540.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's Alpina's whole thing, right? Make the engines breathe better.
Yeah, well,
the
they
whole thing.
did. This thing is certainly robust. And check that out. It's no roof rails on either of these two wagons. That really gives it a good slick line.
I just noticed that. Yeah. Well, that's cool.
Yeah, most wagons you'll see roof rails on. That really is a cool visual feature.
So do you really spend the time to align the cars perfectly?
They're actually a bit crooked today.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just looking right now.
They're a little.
Look straight to me.
Straighter.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's maybe
Is
a bit
it
of my
a laser pointer.
that actually be a good idea. Maybe I should
You get a
invest in
laser
one of
level,
those.
right? Yeah, just straight across.
That's hardcore.
Yeah, we those details matter though.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
I also want to say that the hidden hero for EAG is the guy who parks them, 2 centimeters apart from each other. You guys are brave.
Well, actually, it's everybody, because the last person that drove it is the person that's responsible for parking it. And if they can't park it and keep it safe and in between the lines, they don't have any business working for us.
That's it.
They're at the wrong place. The laser pointer is a great idea. But we used to have all of our cars outside at our main location in Sharonville. It's probably where most people are most familiar seeing us, especially our local clients. And frankly, we've been pretty blessed to be able to have a building like this, and our super secret warehouse number 2, and got a couple other little stash spots where we squirrel these cars away. And it's certainly important to keep them out of the weather. These cars have been protected and out of the elements, pretty much most of the time they've been with the previous owners. And so having them outside in Sharonville was a real stressor for me over the years. And so we have been getting a lot of concerning emails and calls like, hey, you guys okay? I mean, all your stuff's not outside anymore. And we're like, yeah, we're actually better than okay, because everything's not outside because it's safe in warehouses. So if you drive past and you don't see anything out front, don't worry, it's all in here and safe and sound.
Good to know.
That's awesome. This was an amazing tour, actually, Erik. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was great.
I mean, it's quite unique, because even if you do the BMW Classic Tour, you see really special cars, but you don't really see the one-offs or many of the very rare ones. mainly because they got so many, they probably can't even fit all of them. But
Right. That and none of them have stories because they never had really owners. Like they're not they don't have like all these like the M1 owned by Ralph Lauren, and how many owners that went through, and the lightweight that was signed by Alpina and all those guys. So
Yeah.
you
that's
don't get
cool.
the stories in like a museum, right? You don't get like the special
Yeah.
specific stories of the cars. So it's pretty
Well,
cool stuff.
I think that's one of the best parts about it, though, because that's the car's condition is only relative to those that have cared for it prior to today. And
Right.
those the guys that appreciate these, that are the guys that are buying them from us or selling them to us, that they get it. Probably most of the people here watching us right now are get it.
Right.
And that's everybody's got their thing, and when these cars continue to age, I mean, they're not going to be, there's going to be less and less and less of them around. And preserving them and being able to be a part of their life so early in a lot of these cases has really been a blessing, because I think had we not, there'd be a lot less of them around. I don't know exactly how many M cars EAGs sold historically, but it's closer to 10,000 than it is 5,000. I know that.
Right.
And being able to guide their path and keep them in great homes that are going to enjoy them, and do what we said we were going to do to the person that sold it to us. We have a lot of original owners reach out to us saying, it's not necessarily about the transactional ease that we offer, because it's super easy selling us a car. We're going to pay good, fair money, because more times than not, the guy selling us a car is the same guy that wants to buy cars at this caliber if he wants to, have a memory making machine that he made a lot of memories with 30 years ago, because there's no way to buy these new again. We just try really hard to be able to offer that opportunity to buy and own what it is to be behind the wheel of a new one, for a second time. And it takes a lot of time. It takes a ton of money. I mean, our reconditioning expense every year goes up proportionally per car, because we just keep putting more and more and more into them long term. And I remember sitting with our accountant every year back when, early in the days, and he's like, your guys' operating costs and fixed costs just keep going up, and you keep going at this rate. I mean, you guys aren't going to make any money. And while he totally wasn't, he wasn't 100% inaccurate about that statement. We certainly, but it's investing into the cars and investing into our future, and putting the money into the cars now when you can still get the parts, and still have the guys out there that know how it's supposed to be exactly when you're routing the fuel lines or the coolant lines on the M1, which is a real big problem on those cars. That's important, and we're certainly honored to be able to preserve them for ourselves, but also the clients that love the enthusiasts, really, that are going to cherish them and continue to care for them in our absence. So I do want to invite you guys, if you want to see how we do all that stuff, maybe we could come back some point and we'll take you through one or two of the workshops. And we've got workshop 1, workshop 2, we've got the paint and body shop. We've got the paint correction and photo studio where we do all the cosmetic beautification. Maybe we could even make two trips out of that, since it'd be a bit of a haul. And maybe we got the other warehouse that has just as many cars in there, super secret warehouse number 2. A little bit tighter in that warehouse, not quite as well lit, but we could certainly make do and show you all those cars too.
Probably.
Yeah, for sure.
That'd be fun. Yeah, and those cars, they're just as special as a lot of these, and have all the same qualifications of an EAG BMW. They're all, vetted and rehabilitated to new, as close as best we can. I definitely want to invite anybody that's watching, if they have a car that they feel really, passionate about and want to keep it around for a long time, whether you bought it new or bought it and bring a trailer yesterday and are really excited about it. Call us. We'll arrange for transport, get it picked up, enclosed, really high-end carrier, safely bring it in, review it just as we would our own if we bought it to sell it, and then give you a list of here's what the doctor ordered if you decide you want to do your exercises and eat your vegetables. We'll get it sorted out for you.
Right.
You just simply pay the bill this time instead of us.
Actually, I can't hear you, so.
Oh, did you lose it? Did you lose us?
I can hear you guys. Just
oh, okay, yeah. Well, yeah. Thanks for taking us through that tour, because it's it's amazing stuff, and they're cars that people aren't going to see. Outside of that, you can go to all the car shows you want, but it's tough to really get and see really, really special cars, like the Z1 with Alpina wheels. Like no one's going to see stuff like that. So it's awesome to see some of these really cool cars, and like Lime Rock Row, just really, really cool stuff. So we really appreciate you taking the time and kind of virtually bringing us through all these cars.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity, and sharing the cars really is one of the most fun. I mean, I've had a blast doing this stuff for a long time, and that probably is the best part about my job, if I'm being serious. It's great to be able to see people's faces light up when they see something they haven't seen in a long time, and better yet, when they call us and say, hey, the car just got here, and absolutely love it, and that's certainly really rewarding to be able to do that, and keep these cars around for many more years to drive and enjoy. That's what EAG is all about.
Right.